What's up, YouTube? Dan the Planet Man here. I'm coming to you rather disheartened, as I have recently platinumed the Outer Worlds Spacer's Choice Edition. This is the expanded edition of the game, with both of its DLC expansions. I'm disheartened because I wanted to like this game. My kid brother saw it on PS Plus and has been playing the game for a few months. He would excitedly tell me about the game's humor, world building, lore, and fun gameplay. Naturally, this seemed like a game I would enjoy, as it seems similar to other expansive RPGs like Skyrim, and is very comparable to Fallout, being a dystopian future semi post apocalyptic, but with a lot of sci fi added to it. The game almost feels like an adaptation of the show Firefly, being like a sci fi western. The game will, of course, draw many parallels with the show, with heavy and hard handed government influence, ignorant plebes, the freedom and moral ambiguity of freelancers, the main enemy archetype being humans that have lost most of their mental faculties and attack most normal people on sight, the sense of greed, oppression, censorship, and faithful devotion to the government corporations, the fact that nearly all the towns visited are frontier towns with many issues ranging from simple discontent to flat out failing infrastructure, and so on. The more I think about this game, the more I realize just how much seems to be directly ripped from Firefly. Wait a minute. The follow up movie to the Firefly show, Serenity, also had the main plot point about learning that the government created the Reavers, which is the main plot point of the game's second expansion. Is this game just a 1 to 0.875 of the show and movie? Sure, the game's director is on record as saying that it was influenced by Firefly and Futurama, but I didn't expect it to be nearly 1 to 1. But the more I think about this game, the more I realize and come closer to the inevitable epiphany that the game is not great. It's not good. I don't even think it's average, which in this day and age is a 7 out of 10, nor is it mediocre, which is a 6.5 out of 10. No, this game and its prospects and potential bedevil and hound me, and have done so beyond my 43-ish hours of playtime, beyond basically 100%ing the game, and beyond its two DLCs. And I think this is because majority of the impact of the game is lost, mainly because of the game's writing. The game is clear with its narrative, that being that corporations should not be the government. Decisions regarding human life and humanity should not be entrusted to people who are greedily obsessed with nothing more than the bottom line and their own selfish and egotistical whims, and that these corporations and people should be destroyed, rendered powerless, and erased. And from the initial outset, the game starts strong. You immediately become attached to your rescuer, and through nearly every quest throughout the game, you see the atrocities committed in the name of profits. You see the wild and untamed frontier of the alien worlds that humanity is working towards making habitable. You see the hardships of the townships, the people suffering under the oppression and the hostile nature of these alien worlds. You see the ruins of prior settlements being overrun by marauders, the main enemy type, which are basically just Reavers from Firefly. You explore and find computer terminals, where most of the correspondence in the game comes from, seeing what people were writing about, the progression of madness and insanity, the heinous evils committed by the corpos in charge, and many, many lore dumps. But all of this, every nook and cranny explored, every terminal correspondence read, every NPC you interact with, feels so inconsequential, so lifeless, so boring. To be fair, there is very little that you can interact with in the world. There are enemies, there are lootables, there are readables, and that's about it. Games like Fallout and The Elder Scrolls, the games most comparable to this, have way more things to interact with, even if it has no purpose. You can't harvest items from the environment, interact with plants, creatures, and random objects in the environment just because. This is why I say the Outer Worlds feels lifeless, as beyond the enemies, you don't have much else to interact with. Even the plants that produced food didn't have the option for the player to harvest the consumables. If it isn't something you directly use, it has no purpose other than decorative. The game has invisible walls on so much too, so you are even extremely restricted in where you can actually go. Did you like hopping on things to get out of bounds or get somewhere early in Elder Scrolls? Sorry, not an option here, at least not as much as in any other games I've played. You can't jump into the Saltuna tank in Monarch. Trust me, I tried. You can't jump on most of the rocks that look like platforms. And even if you could, the fall damage in this game is merciless. I'm not saying that fall damage shouldn't be applied, but it feels like most regular jumps do damage that shouldn't be applied, such as jumping down half a flight of stairs. Combat is also not enjoyable. You are limited to two ways to attack enemies, either melee or guns. This isn't necessarily an issue, but the game makes the enemies either very weak or very spongy. The game seems to actively push you towards using guns rather than melee, as there are significantly more gun options than melee. Also, all of the melee weapons are outclassed in power by the guns, especially during the late game and in all of the DLCs. This helps less when even with the armor-piercing powers and perks, regular enemies take forever to go down, sometimes having to be humped with 3 full clips of the weapon. And mind you, for the most part, I was playing on normal. Or, through video game shenanigans, you end up one-shotting most of the enemies by using the tactical time dilation, sneak attack, and weak point strike. It also feels weird that the negative status effects on enemies are also only applied when you attack via tactical time dilation, rather than naturally through combat. These issues are also compounded by the player's stats, where several times something either one or two shot me during the game. This happened regardless of level from the beginning zones until endgame. Now, I like cheesing games. I'm no stranger to cheesing games. I like the feeling of being overpowered and being able to one-shot enemies, but only if I've earned it. I loved using the infinite cast of the meteor spells in Elden Ring, using enchantments to give unlimited mana in Skyrim to use the Kamehameha, making unique spells in Oblivion that can cause insane levels of damage, but only if you can touch the enemy. But throughout the whole game of the Outer Worlds, it never felt like I got overpowered. It only ever felt like I got lucky or screwed over instead. And all of the different categories of abilities in your leveling in Outer Worlds offered so much. Multiple abilities unlock unique dialogue across most of the spectrum. If you spec correctly, you can just talk your way throughout almost the entire game and bypass the final boss. But this is only the initial view, as like most everything else in the game, the actual implementation is incredibly shallow. Leveling the abilities simply allows certain checks to be bypassed, as the game won't even let you attempt something if there is no chance of success. Everything you do is either 100% chance to succeed or 100% chance to fail. It can be infuriating to be looting a building and find that you can't open something just because your lockpick skill is level 69 and it requires 70. But the fact that you can't even attempt to perform the action shows a lack of respect towards the player. it can be amazing to nail an extremely low chance of success, especially in an RPG like this. Remember picking a master level lock in Skyrim without the perks for it? How about nailing that 2% critical chance on a boss in any turn based RPG, particularly Fire Emblem with its character permadeaths? How about catching a PAL or a human in PAL World, possibly by accident, but you manage to get that 0.5% chance? How about soft resetting for a shiny starter Pokemon? What about in Fallout, where you use the VATS and manage to get a lucky shot that crippled the enemy, and you manage to use that to win an otherwise unwinnable fight? I could go on, but I think the point has been made. Even if you can't succeed, you should still be able to try. I don't know of any player that wouldn't at least want to try to pass a non 0% skill chance just to see what would happen. It feels like the developers wanted to insist on holding your hand and not let you try anything with a chance of failure. Granted, Fallout New Vegas has done the same way, but it feels significantly more egregious here in Outer Worlds. The story feels extremely lackluster in Outer Worlds because, save for the crazy intro, the story quickly devolves into predictable sameness. You get to place, there's not enough resources, and you need to help both the normal people and the leaders, either in getting resources, culling less productive members, siding with or against the corporations, generally only through flex quests. There are some bounty or hunting quests, but that's about it. Many of them are also overly long. Go to place A, find item that says quest object is now in place B. Go to B, and it's a 50-50 chance if you need to go to place C or back to the quest giver. The places, of course, are all on totally different ends of the map. Usually, it's a fair bet that you go in a circle around the map. The quest starting at 12 o'clock, first objective at 3 o'clock, second at 6 o'clock, final at 9 o'clock, just to go back to 12 o'clock to finish it off. The quests are nearly all so tedious, and none of them stand out in my mind for being fun or engaging. There are some that I can remember, mainly because there's a trophy attached, like getting back the special toothpaste, or starring in a movie. And there are some quests that are just questionable or annoying. The quest that stands out to me as the most egregious is Pravarti's second companion quest. First, you have to go to the Groundbreaker and get some special toiletries. Then, you have to go to Monarch and get 2 items, one from the southwest corner of the map and another from the northeast part. Then, you need to go to another planet and get a dress. Then, finally, you need to go back to the Groundbreaker, hang out in your ship a bit, and then finally, you are done. I was tempted to off my companion Pravarti right there and then, but unfortunately, I needed her for several other trophies I was working on. The journey was awful, and the destination was in shambles. Clearly not worth it. No quest sticks out in my mind of, man, I gotta have someone else do this quest. It was so much fun and so crazy. And if you stick to the main quest, the shock of all of the reveals is always just the reveal that, yes, the worst case scenario has happened, and we can't fix it now, and might never be able to fix it. And for an RPG, the enemy variety is very lacking. The human enemies feel mostly the same, save for the second DLC where all the enemies are on speed and run at about 120 frames per second. The first DLC introduces infected humans and a new enemy type, but they just seem to be humans with bonus status effects, and the new enemy seems to be a reskin of already existing enemies. It also feels weird that throughout the game, despite visiting various planets with different climates, terrains, and so on, why is it that all the enemies are basically the same? Continuing on with my story grievances, The game basically has two paths for the main story: the corporate path or the freedom path. However, the final boss for both storylines is the same. The final dungeon is the same, and the final dungeon represents a point of no return. The game does offer some replay value, simply due to the different ways that you can approach situations, and get some funny dialogue if you play as a low intelligence character. Until you realize that the different ways to approach a situation is either combat or talking your way out of it. Stealth offers a one-time free hit before it immediately alerts all other enemies around and combat properly starts. There are extremely few environmental hazards, and the few that there are all come from reprogramming the robots in an area where they just do the whole work for you, save for one new hazard against the final boss of the first DLC, which isn't even necessary. The only storyline that even remotely engaged me was the first DLC, where you investigate the murder of a celebrity. The twists are all predictable, but it was still the highlight. The second DLC, spoiler alert, has the reveal ripped straight from Firefly's movie Serenity, being that the corporations created the Marauders by accident. So, nothing about this game is original, and the only surprises are from the different ways the ruling corporations found to screw over the people, which can elicit shock or chortles the first time they appear, and maybe the second time. But grow tired when quest number 34 has the reveal that the corporation used 97 for the 120th time on that planet alone. And each township only has a few actual NPCs. Most of the NPCs you will find are nameless, can't be interacted with beyond a handful of canned phrases, and serve basically no purpose. So when you get to a town, just keep an eye out for the ones that actually have names, and see if they have one or two quests to give you. And that's it. Regarding NPCs, let's talk about the companions. You get 6 of them, and technically all of them are optional. Pavardi, Vicar Max, Sam, Nyoka, Felix, and Ellie. Pavardi is basically foisted upon you, is unremarkable in her skills, has a very crappy companion attack, and has the absolute worst quest in the entire game that is required for trophies. Vicar Max has some good uses in several quests and is measured. He has some funny dialogue at times, and his quests aren't that tedious, and his companion skill is very useful on a single enemy to stagger them. Sam is hands down the best companion in the game. He has one quest to recruit him. He has some funny lines. His weapons are broken in a good way. He has good support skills, and his companion ability hits in an AoE that does massive damage and stuns enemies. Nyoka is recruited almost as part of the main quest, and she is just annoying. She feels too aggressive with enemies, but doesn't do enough damage against the main enemies that she supposedly fights for a living. Plus, her second quest is pretty annoying, trekking all over the planet Monarch for a cruddy payoff. Felix is good for his companion ability, being able to stun an enemy for a long time. His one quest I completed by accident, having killed the mark long before getting the quest. Other than that, unnotable. Use him until you get Sam. Finally, Ellie, who has an easy recruit, a crappy companion skill like Nyoka, and a mildly annoying second quest. Use Sam and Vicar Max as your companions and you're set. It's also very annoying that the trophy for killing 50 enemies with companion skills seems to be heavily bugged, as I had to kill definitively with hundreds of companion abilities. And the trophy bugs are very dumb. I had issues with the 50 companion ability kills, 50 stealth kills, hitting 30 enemies in the groin during tactical time dilation, killing 30 auto mechanicals with shock damage, killing 50 enemies with tossball weapons, and killing an enemy with all 5 damage types. I also had a bug in my favor for killing 20 enemies by spreading N rays. I killed one enemy, potentially 4, and it popped for me. I also had a bug with the second DLC for collecting phonographs where I had collected 4 more than the 20 and they didn't count. So, after talking it out, I have to say that The Outer Worlds had so much potential, but is diminished by its superficiality, predictability, and lack of memorability. In accordance with the Dan the Ranking Man patented ranking, the Platinum is a 3 and a third out of 10, as you are required to beat the game on the hardest difficulty, Supernova, which makes the enemies really, really, really spongy with tons of health, and nothing you do seems to help mitigate the damage you receive to survive longer. However, this is assuaged provided you speed run the game with a combination of stealth and high levels of persuasion. You can actually beat the game in about 45 minutes to an hour, which I did for the trophies. So enjoy that in the long plays. I have to say that overall, the game is a 54 out of 100. The game's only bugs that I saw come from the trophies. Quests all seem to work and track properly, but the story needs a lot of polish, the gameplay needs to be greatly expanded, and more variety is sorely needed. I mean, for fuck's sake, the first planet has an active volcano and lava flows, and they do next to nothing with it. They use it as a power source and sometimes an environmental hazard, and you can mostly avoid it by just walking around it. Enemies don't even like to spawn nearby the lava flows, so just it pains me to place this game so far below the average, but I can't overlook the game's many flaws. I'm also pretty disillusioned for the game's upcoming sequel, as the finale of this game was pretty conclusive and definitive, no matter which of the two endings you actually got. It's also telling that the one quest I remember fully is the one that was the most time consuming and annoying. If you're looking for memorability, off the top of my head from similar games are the following quests: Skyrim, the quest where you get drunk, black out, and have to retrace your steps to find out what happened, how to fix it, and possibly get your revenge. Finding the last living snow elf. Earning the power to block out the sun. Happening upon a crazy jester talking to himself about the broken cart. Choosing to kill the head of the Dark Brotherhood and having to hunt down the remaining members. Having to break into a jail and then break out of it while being basically unarmed. Or in Oblivion, crashing a party to cast a spell that makes everyone nude. Having to recover a wing from a well, and finding out it's a trap meant to drown anyone and then confronting the murderer. Discovering the power to create black soul gems. Breaking a monk's curse in order to obtain boots imprisoned on an astral plane. Finding out someone switched your dead drops and you've been assassinating your own guildmates. These quests live in my head rent free. I'm sure there are many others, but I limited myself to these that came within 30 seconds at most to remember. If you like The Outer Worlds, that's fine. But I, personally, am extremely disillusioned with this game and its lack of potential. You can check out my long plays, and you'll see how I platinumed the game. So, it's a mission complete for the platinum, but it was one of the most soulless experiences I've had in a long time. So, until next time, please like and subscribe. And remember, only losers drink the Spectrum Brown.